more importantly, we've been talking for the last 17 weeks, and that's the period in which, as you all know, we've refrained from calling any type of strike action. Now, whether you had any faith in them talks from the beginning or whether you didn't, nobody can argue that we haven't been reasonable, we haven't been patient, and that we haven't engaged throughout. From the beginning, I want to say to the end, but it's not the end of the talks, because we've made it clear in all our correspondence that we are ready to get round that table at the shortest of notice. It is the government that has stopped them talks. Now, as you know, they've done a few things throughout them talks. I'd like to say they've been as reasonable and as patient as we have, but they haven't. And I won't go through the details of the scheme completely, because I know how informed you all are. But I will go over a couple of things, what the government have done during that 17 weeks. Firstly, and perhaps most significantly, and you would have felt this rather acutely in your last pay packet, is they've given us the third annual pension contribution increase, and we got that in April. That now means that the majority of you are paying a minimum of 14.2%. 14.2%, amongst the highest in any public or private sector scheme. That's over £4,000 a year you are now putting into your pension scheme. Officers more, by the way, that's the minimum. That's over £4,000 a year from a £28,000 a year salary that's fell behind inflation year after year after year. And Brandon Lewis says that's generous. Brandon Lewis, in fact, says that's the most generous. Now, when he talks about generous, we should also look at the employer contribution. We actually get the lowest employer contribution amongst any of the schemes. And in fact, I think you'll find Mr. Lewis himself has the opportunity to get a scheme 3 times more generous than that employer contribution that we get. Now, you've got to remember, you know, to put this in context, you've got to compare this to the actions of the people who've done this to us. This is a time when the champagne bill in the House of Commons is at an all-time high. This is a time when they're talking about recommending an 11% pay rise to the very people who are doing this to us. The very people who reckon our scheme is over-generous. That is one of the reasons you're here today. Secondly, is that one any? Hello, is that any better? Okay. Secondly, we need to look at the way he's conducted himself. Now, I'm sure none of you missed, I don't want to say lie, I'll be polite, I say the way he misled the House of Commons over certain questions. He was asked about protection of existing members in the scheme and what our union are doing about it. He said that we hadn't even brought it to the table. I'm sure Keith can back this up. We brought it to the table from day one, and we've repeated it throughout. Now, why would a man who supposedly in genuine talks to negotiate a settlement to this dispute feel the need to mislead the House of Commons over the nature of them talks? Further to that, we found out yesterday that that's not the only thing that Brad Lewis has been misleading people on. He told us, hence our patience, that he needed time, he needed to deal with the Treasury, he needed to do the costings, he needed to work out how the tax implications from the budget affected some of the proposals that he wanted to make to us. We've now found out yesterday from a leaked letter, he's had fully costed and prepared proposals to offer us since the 19th of March. The 19th of March. He was told that if we'd given us an offer by the 24th, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't have been forced into removing our labour and removing the fire cover. Now, I'm sure you'll make up your own mind as to why he's doing that and why he's playing them games, but it's certainly something that's not going to go away. That is something that needs further exploration. Why has this man called a needless fire strike when he had the power to offer us an improved position? He had the proposals there, we know it. Thirdly, and I'm sure this is one of the main things you're going to be speaking to the public about today when we go out in a minute and we hand out our leaflets, the no job, no pension side. He has said throughout that is not his intention, yet he has refused, in a way that Scotland have, he has refused to give us the assurances and underpin that legally to actually make that a fact, okay? He tells us, his own report, I'd like to say it was our evidence, but it's our evidence, it's the independent evidence, and it's the government's own evidence. The doctor they picked clearly states that on a good chance, 85% of us standing here now are going to be put into that no job, no pension category. That is, he calls it a choice. He said we can choose to leave, we call that the sack where I come from, but you can choose to leave, or you can choose to have that pension, which I've just mentioned, you're paying over £4,000 a year into, and you can give them 50% of it for the very crime of losing your fitness a bit because you're getting older, the crime of ageing. Now, Brandon Lewis is also saying he doesn't think that that's going to happen. He doesn't agree with us about how often that's going to happen. You all know about the Dr. Williams report. You all know about the doctor he chose, not us, he chose it. And I'm going to read this bit because I want to get it right. This is a quote. For those of you who are inclined to look it up, it's page 123, paragraph 9 of the Dr. Williams report, where the occupational health expert clearly says not all firefighters will meet the criteria. A significant number will be in a position where they can no longer cope, often through loss of fitness. But the only option that remains is to leave the SAC or have their contract terminated on capability grounds without early payment of pension. This is often a difficult position for all involved. Now this man's saying that's not going to exist. It's in his own report. It's in a report he commissioned. And what's he done with that evidence? And this is where the frustration lies. And this is why I know you're all here today. Because even the most casual of observers to this dispute can see that these proposals are absurd. They're completely unworkable and they are set up to fail. Okay, and that leaves us to where we are today. We know he's refusing, he's either unable or he's unwilling. We're still not sure, but he will not give us them proposals. And where does that put us? Does that mean now that he's squaring up to take us on? Does that mean now we've got to fight harder? We've been patient, we've been reasonable, we've engaged in the talks. Now do we have to step it up? There's something we're going to be discussing at our mass meeting, and it's something we have to be seriously think about. But this man has now picked a fight with us. We didn't choose this fight. We're not asking for extra, we're just asking for a fair and a reasonable occupational scheme that's fit for our occupation. But I would send him a message, if I was going to pick a fight, it wouldn't be with you lot. I've grown up with firefighters. Firefighters are fighters by nature, right? It's in their name. Trade unionists are fighters by nature. You know, we will not kneel down and allow them to take what's rightfully ours. So if he's going to pick a fight with firefighter trade unionists, then I'll send him this message. I'll ask Mr. Lewis to get round that table as quickly as he can and negotiate a reasonable settlement to this dispute. Because we will not compromise on public safety. And we cannot forget that is at the centre of this dispute, public safety. An ageing workforce, a firefighter trying to drag his carcass across the line just so he can get a full pension and secure a future for his family is as dangerous to the public as it is to us. We will not compromise on firefighter safety, and we absolutely will not kneel down, roll over and let this man steal what we have sacrificed so much, £4,000 a year, to pay for. So please, get that message out there today. Use your personal circumstances. We're going to have to be doing a lot more of this. We're going to be asking you at short notice to get to these events, to get to mass pickets, to get to leafleting events, to lobby MPs. We really have to. We're in a scrap now when we have to win it. We have to show them we absolutely will not roll over and let them do that to us. Okay, thank you very much. Cheers.